I'll just jump in a little bit on the liberal arts background. I think it is hard. I work in Boston, and I'm up against people, I've sort of, joked before, there are people who majored in my job. There is a communications major with a specialty in media planning. I'd never heard of that before. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know it was a subset of advertising. I actually, to sort of give props a little bit to CSO, I signed up for, I don't even know what it's called anymore, it was Mojo, and they had internship mailings that, just got sent out to me, and I think I was home for Thanksgiving or Christmas break one time. My parents went to bed at 10 o'clock, I was up at midnight, and there was nothing else to do. And so I was checking my email, and something blipped in, and I responded to this post with a cover letter. Turned out to be MPG Arnold, and I got offered an interview. And so spring break, I went down and interviewed, and I got this internship, and I, Googled it, but Google wasn't even then what it is now, and so I kind of went in totally blind. And so I got the internship, and then I kind of just fell into it. It was happened to be working on the biggest account that was in the market at the time, Volkswagen, and was an awesome experience. Just couldn't have asked for anything better. I actually met Suzanne there. I was on a lunch, just stalling during lunch one day, and hopped on Panthernet, or the equivalent of it at the time. Saw that there were actually 2 Middlebury alums who worked at Arnold's, which was 2 floors up. And so I wandered around, and I actually found, you were sitting next to Paul at the time, weren't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I knocked on the door.
Oh, yeah, 2 Middlebury people were sitting next to me.
Right next to me. The only 2 that I knew of at the time. There are far more that weren't, on the Panthernet listing, but I walked up, and there happens to be a Middlebury banner literally over Suzanne's head. I'm like, I'm in the right spot, all right. I'm like, knock, knock. She's on the phone, and she's like staring at me like, all right. And so I just sat down. I think we talked for or I don't know if we talked then, but we came back, chatted for about an hour. We led parallel lives for quite a while there with MCAB and social houses and tour guiding and all sorts of stuff. And Suzanne actually became a real mentor to me. And when I was at Feb, and so my internship was the summer before my final semester. And so I made some great contacts there and kept in touch with Suzanne and a couple other folks that I met at Arnold. They subsequently lost Volkswagen and went on a hiring freeze, so that ended up not being an option for me at the time. But still, sort of the insider help was great, and just opened those doors. How I ended up getting my first job was that my boss, the media director on the Volkswagen account, resigned shortly after I left there and went to a smaller agency across the street. So then I started networking with her, not knowing that she had any openings or anything, just sort of, hey, keep in touch with people in the industry who I had a good rapport with. She wrote my recommendation, and just chatted with her for about half an hour. And at the end of that conversation, this was probably late January, she's like, that we have an opening for an entry-level position. You interested? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is seriously after about half an hour of me saying how I didn't want to go into media. And so she's like, all right, well, just, come on in, meet with the HR director, see what happens. Went in, got offered the job, some soul searching, took the job, absolutely loved it, worked there for a year and a half, and then I boomeranged back with a promotion back to MPG where I started. Obviously, they recovered after the hiring freeze. And, there I am now, and I'm now working for the people who interviewed me for my internship 4 years ago. Don't burn bridges, number one. It is a very small industry. And I actually referred a friend of mine who I worked with at my first agency over to Suzanne at Mullen, who was part of, she essentially hired my friend Amanda. It's a very small world. Networking is huge.
Let's talk about that, because when Leslie brings up those colleges that are the advertising majors at 18, and they've literally done 7 internships by the time they are sophomores. They've had experiences international agencies on their resumes. How do you compete? That's where the Middlebury degree is different, because you have this tremendous network that one day you will be on this panel helping someone else out or receive a resume, and it's up to you to do the right thing. I mean, to do the Middlebury thing, I think, and sort of figure out, okay, I'm looking at your resume, I see that you're an English major, but you've got all this art history, would you ever think of a gallery? Just helping people out and really investigating, I really want to move to Chicago. Who's in Chicago? Hugh, how can you help me out? Or, the Career Centers is doing fabulous jobs, even with this, doing a week like this. And, Leslie, back and forth. If I have someone, it's over to Leslie. Can you help this person out? So as much as you can sort of extend your branches, and especially within the Middlebury network, I think it's part of the Middlebury degree is, just as you take classes and you get a degree in something, you also kind of agree to help and kind of hopefully will receive it someday. Give, take.
it's nice to have an advocate on the other side who understands the liberal arts background. I have absolutely no regrets for coming here. I absolutely love my time at Middlebury, and I think, you know, every one of us sitting in this room is getting one of the best educations you can ask for. And it's not, you won't immediately see that, I think. I think your first month or two on the job search might be kind of confusing and overwhelming, and that may be why you're here now, and if so, that's awesome. But it's because there's not a clear path. There's not one way you can go, and that's the best thing, is you have all the tools in your toolbox, and it's up to you to figure out how you put something together. But, you know, the media director who I ended up working for, she was a psychology major at Georgetown. She knew my background. She could fight for me. She knew what I had to offer. You know, two of my supervisors now went to Skidmore. You know, I had Suzanne fighting for me, sort of saying, you know, it doesn't look like she has the same skill set that this kid coming from BU School of Communications who had 15 internships was able, you know, went to Northeastern and, you know, had a co-op and worked for 3 months at this ad agency. We're not coming in with that kind of experience. What we have is so much better in the long term, and it's nice to have somebody, find those people in the industries who can fight for you, or who can tell you how you can position yourself and how to highlight the skills that Suzanne's talking about, you know, and that Paul mentioned as far as, you know, going to journalism. Nothing is wasted. That, you know, Chinese philosophy class that I took sophomore year to fulfill a requirement, it came up. Eventually it will come up, and, you know, it kind of, it shows that you're well-rounded. It shows that you can pop in advertising. I mean, we can all speak to that. You touch a lot of things. I'm selling tires and French fries now. A year and a half ago, I was selling Emirates Airline. You know, right after 9/11. Like, that's a challenge. Selling Four Seasons Resorts. Barbados Tourism Authority was a client, and then I started working on Harley Davidson. What do I know? I'm buying pages in Motorcycle Weekly, or, you know, I don't even remember the name of all these magazines. But you take a little bit of everything, and I think, you know, we're chameleons and we're jacks of all trades. You know, it's a little bit of everything that you just need to splice together and make a pretty picture. So, sort of, that's my soapbox. But I do believe it, and don't feel that you're at any kind of a disadvantage for coming from a liberal arts background going into a communications type of.
Don't underestimate the Middlebury connection at all. I got my first job at our Finder Partners, which is a small agency. It's an offshoot of Ruder Finn, which is a larger multinational agency. And I had a contact there. We were in ADP together. I knew her. She was 2 years older than me. I emailed her. You know, I said, hey, I'm looking to get into PR. You know, do you have any openings? And they did. They had an associate program, and they came through CSO, I think, to one of the consortiums in New York, and they interviewed. And knowing Whitney, I was able to get my foot in the door. When I sat down with the HR person for the interview, I said, oh, yeah, I hear all these great things from Whitney, and I knew so much about the agency already. And that, you know, was definitely a benefit, and I think that's what got me in. Also, I reviewed all the Middlebury resumes that came to RF Finder from that point onward. So if you had emailed me, or maybe we had talked on the phone, you know, oh, I'm interviewing with RF Finder, I wanted to get in touch, I knew your name. And so when I saw your resume, even if I didn't think you had the PR background that they were necessarily looking for, I'd put up a fight for you.
I mean, we are very lucky to have the network, but I also will challenge you to do appropriate research. Figure out, you know, does MPG have 1,000 employees, or does it have 10? Like, kind of know, just as when you're applying for colleges, is Middlebury in a small town, or is it in a bustling city? Like, know what you're getting into, and bare minimum, go to the website, check out the news, check out the contact us. Just have a feel for the actual company that you're approaching a Middlebury grad at, because it'll be a conversation versus what questions do you have? Number one, blah, 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 you know? So